Good afternoon. Welcome to the Q.A.C. Team Podcast. How are you today?
Hey, how are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let's get started and tell the audience a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is San Hong, and I'm the founder of Drive Phase Consulting. We are a no-code development agency. So we develop custom apps using what's known as no code. So for those that aren't kind of familiar with that, that's really just visual programming. So think of a Wix or WordPress, what it did for websites. Platforms like Bubble, WeWeb, Xano are doing that for full application development, where it's not just the front end interface, but actually the back end workflow. So we're able to build pretty complex apps without writing a line of code. And so really the biggest takeaway from that is we're able to build the apps about 5 to 10 times faster than traditional code. And then as you can imagine, the cost savings is pretty much in line with that time savings.
Yeah, I can only imagine because back in 2015, I had an app built, an idea that I was working on, and it's all code. And my app was actually, they took a framework of one and they kind of broke it up and made it what I wanted because what I wanted didn't exist. So they had to, break it down. It took them about 6 months to do it.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so that's why I'm glad we're interviewing because you interest me on this side of the apps because knowing how long it took that developing team to do it, it's I'm amazed at how this no code works. So let's tell a
Sure.
little bit more about why'd you decide to be a business owner?
So I've been a business owner for going on over 20 years now, 21 years now.
Nice.
So it was a little bit of accidental. I was laid off from my company, and kind of that led me into starting my own company. And I've had a
Um,
few companies since then in a variety of industries.
nice, nice. So tell us a little bit about why you chose this industry.
Yeah, so the real kind of journey into a no code app development agency is back over the pandemic. I have only child, a daughter. She was eight at the time during the pandemic, and she
Mhm.
wanted to. Her highlight of the day, it was a tough time for her because just socially she was by herself, and so her highlight was the ice cream truck. And so what happened virtually every day is we'd hear the ice cream truck. She'd freak out, run around trying to find her money, trying to find her shoes, and I had to, wait for me to get my stuff so I could go with her. And so we missed the ice cream truck more often than not. And so
Uh,
eventually she asked me if we could build an app to track the ice cream truck. And as a dad, it's like you can't say no to that. And so I looked at what it would cost to pay someone to build that, and I was like, "Ooh, that is a lot, a lot more than I want to pay." So I ended up
yeah.
instead taking a class on Bubble.io, which is probably one of the first real no-code platforms. I do tell people that I think actually Microsoft Access is probably what I consider the first no-code platform, but Bubble is probably the first kind of web-based no-code platform. So I took
Yeah.
a course on that. We built the app, and it was pretty cool. Is We got named App of the Day by Bubble, and then we also got a food truck association in the Wisconsin area actually licensed that app from us for about 3 years. So, and that was my
That's,
eight-year-old daughter's idea, and so I
that's
was able
very
to do that.
cool.
Yeah, so
That
yeah,
is
so
so
it's kind
cool.
of a fun story. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so I started to build apps for my own businesses, and then eventually it kind of morphed into building it for other businesses, and that's kind of where we are today.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Give us a little bit of history. Like, so you started with your daughter, and then it kind of morphed into doing your own thing, and now you're.
Yeah, so one of the first ones I did, I have an e-commerce business, and that's another business that actually just went ballistic during the pandemic. So we
Yeah.
sold paint by number kits. And so most of what we sold were custom kits where people would give us our photo, we convert it into a paint by number kit that they could paint a very realistic version of that photo. So we would offer a proof. We were one of the few ones that offered a proof. And so what we would do is we would have to download that photo. I'd have a VA send it to our vendor that would convert it. Get that proof, send it back to the customer, then we get approval. So one of the first apps I built was a system to that integrated with the e-commerce system. So it actually downloaded the photo automatically into our system. We gave access to our vendor automatically. They would upload the proof that would automatically trigger an email to our customer. and they would approve it. And so what was a 5 minute per order process went down to zero. And during the pandemic, we did about 5 to 8 thousand orders a year. So you can do the math, and it was pretty significant. The other thing
Yeah.
that we did was after they approved it, we asked them, "Hey, do we have permission to post on social media?" And if they
Mhm.
did, it would automatically post to Twitter, Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, and our impressions on all those channels. Well, at one point we were getting about 1 million impressions a month on Pinterest, and it was all automated content. So
That's
yeah,
incredible.
yeah, no. So that was, and then like I said, so then we would talk about that, and then people said, "Oh, well, can you do X, Y, Z for me?" And so then it kind of just grew from there.
Yeah. So is that something that is that like a can you franchise that thing out now to people, or is it kind of like you're just doing it as per basis?
Which part? The e-commerce business or?
Yeah, 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 yeah. The paint by number.
So no, we do it kind of in-house. We actually, yeah,
Nice.
we do it in-house. We're not franchising it. It's a decent business, but I don't think it's a big enough market that it's
Gotcha.
franchisable.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's definitely interesting. I mean, I've seen it, but I never really that sounds pretty cool where you're actually taking a picture and then you're converting it so people can actually paint that picture that
yeah.
they send in.
It's
That's very
actually
cool.
very cool. Yeah, it's actually
Yeah.
very cool. So people love it.
Yeah.
It's relaxing, and like I said, during the pandemic, it was like people were dying for things to do. That's probably
Yeah.
bad, poor choice of words. People were looking for things to do, and so paint by numbers really took off during that period.
Yeah. Yeah, during the pandemic, I was trying to get my app going. I had a really good idea, but Google kind of stole my app right after the pandemic, but it's okay. Um, I had a great idea where I had a check-in app and you could actually put comments in. So my idea was, hey, look, use my app, check in where you're at. You can tell people where toilet paper is and where it's not. So you can save people time.
Well, that you could do that pretty easy. I mean, like I said, we did the food truck tracking app, and so essentially, there's probably a lot of similarities with that. So
Yeah.
you can actually build that pretty quickly with no code.
I'll have to send you the two links to my app that I had it on it was on Apple and Android for about I don't know, probably a good 2 years. I actually do two videos, one how you check in and one how to actually go through it. I have to show it to you. You can see what we built. It was actually really
Yeah.
cool, and it's a shame that it got stolen, but it's okay. It's intellectual property, right? You can't do much about it.
Yeah, apps are hard to protect, unfortunately.
Exactly. Yeah. Which leads into my next question so let's talk about some of the challenges that you face, when you were building this, getting this together and the ice cream truck app, and now here you are in your own business. Tell us some of the challenges that you faced.
I think the biggest ones is just lack of awareness in the market. I think a lot of people that we talk to that can benefit the most from no code have no idea what no code is. And the reality is they don't need to know what no code is per se, but you do kind of at least need to know that's available because I think the perception has always been, and it still is. I mean, I tell people we've saved our clients when they have another estimate, they share it with us, and then we kind of compare that to what we actually built it for. We've saved our clients over $1 million in app development costs, right? So I mean, there's still, there's a couple of projects we're working on right now that, they've received estimates of 500 to $1 million, right? And so I think there's a lot of perception in the kind of the business world, or at least the small business world, that an app is out of their realm of their ability to build, right? And the reality is the technology between no code technology and AI technology, it's become a lot more accessible. So I think that's number one is people just aren't aware that exists, that they can build custom technology, right? And so we encounter a lot of people that are running their business off an Excel spreadsheet, right? Which is just not the most efficient way to do it. So some of our best clients we've turned an Excel spreadsheet into an app, right? And
Wow.
so I think that's number one. And then number two is that are aware of no code technology. There's a perception that it can only build something simple. Um, Now, there's certain limitations to no code, but the reality is it's a lot higher. The ceiling's a lot higher than people realize, and we haven't encountered actually so far an app we couldn't build. I'm
Mhm.
sure we will at some point, but I think that's the other thing is people that don't think they can build it in no code. That's really my number one question is can this be built in no code? And like I said, 9 times out of 10, the answer is yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I was intrigued because, when you hear no code, it makes you think like, so what is no code, right? Tell us about, you know, I'm always curious. So tell me what no code is and how do I get involved in this?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's visual programming, and I tell people when you look at most business apps and you break it down into really what's happening, 95% of them are you're creating data, you're reading existing data, you're manipulating that data, and then you're displaying that data in some way, right? And
Right.
so no code is basically leveraging, hey, we know that all these apps share a lot of the same workflows. So we're going to pre-build those elements. And so again, it's almost like drag and drop, but again, it's more so it's the visual components drag and drop is still, but you're also now adding kind of the back end logic and workflow where you're taking kind of pre-built workflows and kind of combining them in whatever way you need them to create kind of the magic behind the scenes. And so
Yeah.
that's really what's happening with
Yeah.
most of these no code platforms. Well, really all the no code platforms.
Yeah. Yeah. There was one some time ago when because I have a vision of a whole different app I want to create. It's a future project. Right now, I'm very busy with what I'm doing.
Sure.
But I was looking at a website that was kind of no code, drag and drop, and I couldn't do it. And I commend you because, trying to figure it out and trying to make it work the way I wanted it to work, I couldn't do it. It wouldn't work.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy. The learning curve is definitely easier than traditional code, no doubt.
Yeah.
But I tell people, even though it's no code, you still have to think like a coder, and it's not, if you can get over that hump, then kind of the world is your oyster. But really, it can be a challenge for some people. It's just if they're just not thinking like that, it's just a different type of thinking.
Yeah.
And so I think, but what I have found though is once you pick up one you can pick up new platforms very quickly. So, for instance, I wanted to learn a new no code platform, so I learned on Bubble.io, which is
Um,
probably the most well known no code platform, I would say.
gotcha.
So there's a newer one that's really designed for more scalable apps. So it's will be WeWeb is the front end tool, and then you pair that with a back end tool. So I chose Xano, which is a back end tool. So
Um,
I said I wanted to over the Christmas holiday. I knew it was going to be slower, so I wanted to learn that platform. And then usually what I say is that if I'm going to build something, kind of like the food truck app or the ice cream truck app, I'm going to build something that would be useful. So over the holiday, I had been doing some social listening where I've been getting leads through basically monitoring posts on Twitter, Reddit, and LinkedIn for certain keywords. I was using a tool that I didn't love, so I decided, well, let me just use this time. I'll learn the no code platform. I'll build my own platform. And
sure.
I hadn't used it before, but I was able to build that platform. It's called signalboard.io. I was able to build that in about 3 weeks
Wow.
with the first. Yeah. And
That's
so
impressive.
a lot of it's because I knew one platform and there's enough similarity between them that it was easier to pick up.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of it. And so that, and there's another one that I'm looking at as well that again, I think it's just a little bit easier once you've learned the first one.
Right. That's very cool. Yeah. So has AI helped you out as you go through and you're developing apps and working with these applications? What role does AI play with you now? Because I know it's got to help, right?
Yeah, so there's a couple roles that AI is playing in the kind of app development space. So one is, which I don't get myself involved in because is AI generated code. So you can put a prompt in, and it'll actually write code for an app.
Yeah.
What I tell people is if you're a coder, that's probably what you're going to lean towards because at the end of the day, the output of that is code. The problem is if you don't know code and you want to maintain that, deploy that, then it's still in code, right? And
Still the
so,
code,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
exactly. But coders, that's changing. That's changing that whole industry. And candidly, you're also seeing like kind of the jobs dropping, quite a bit in the coding space, and I suspect a lot of it is because of the efficiency from AI generated code. So that's
Mm,
one. I'll put that aside because again, that's not an area that I play with.
yeah,
But there's two areas that AI is helping in the no code space. So number one is a lot of apps that we're doing. So the app that I just built, the signal board, I incorporated AI in two ways. Number one is when we download these mentions on the different social media platforms, I run it through a filter where when I add the keywords, I say, here's what I'm looking for. I basically have AI evaluate each of those mentions to say, hey, is this high intent or low intent? So it kind of scores it, right? The other thing it
gotcha.
does is I have it set so, okay, once I kind of tell the AI this is what I want, it'll draft a response. I still have to edit it, but it kind of drafts a response for me. So it cuts my time down quite a bit. So kind of incorporating AI into a no code app is one area. And the nice thing is AI, no code is great if you're familiar with the term API.
Yeah,
A lot of heavy lifting is done by these APIs where
yeah,
you're basically integrating and so an API is just a way that I can integrate my app with this other third party kind of system, and I can leverage what that system can do into my own system. And so all those AI, OpenAI, Gemini, they have an API expose that I can kind of send the prompt that I want and then get back the response. And so no code makes it really easy to do those integrations. And so that's part of the speed benefit that you get is the ability to do those integrations really quickly. So AI no code, really good fit. The last area that I'll say is a lot of the no code platforms are now incorporating AI into the building piece
yeah,
where I can kind of put the prompt and say, here's what I want. And then it'll
yeah,
build out a lot of the workflows. And now the beauty of that is if I'm not a coder or I'm not a technical background person, that is now in no code. So now it's a little bit easier for me to deploy, a little bit easier for me to maintain, a little bit easier for me to make iterations on, if I've learned that platform. But it speeds
nice.
up that initial build, and then I have
Yeah,
something to work from. So that's where I'm kind of most excited because a lot of them, a lot of the platforms I'm working on are starting to roll out a lot of these features, and I could see how it's going to bring that price down even lower, which
yeah.
is good and bad, but in the grand scheme of things, it's going to make innovation just that much more accessible for anyone.
Yeah, well, obviously it's all about speed, right? I mean, the more apps you can
100%.
pump out, man, the
Yeah,
more money you
100%.
can make. Even though the price is coming down, you do more, right? Quality
Yeah,
and
exactly.
quantity versus, the speed, you'll be all
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
100%.
love
Yeah,
it.
no, 100%.
Yeah,
And I tell people when it comes to technology, cost savings is huge. The speed is probably more important
yeah,
because
yeah,
once you build that initial version, like you're not anywhere close to being done. Like once you have users on the platform using it, they're going to start giving you feedback. You're going to figure out, okay, this is what they want. So that your ability to kind of respond to that feedback in a fast manner is huge and is a huge competitive advantage. So that's where no code I think is even more valuable is the ability to respond, take that feedback, and iterate on that initial product.
yeah. That's very smart. Very, very smart. I like it. Good
Yeah, yeah.
process. Yeah, yeah, awesome. So what's next for you guys, the next year or two for your business?
Yeah, so I'll tell you what, I mean, we've been in a little bit of a transition. Um, we started out um, with some, smaller business, kind of like local, home services type businesses, and we started doing a lot of services for them. Um, got a lot of projects under our belt, but what we found is it just they weren't profitable for us because
Yeah,
I think one challenge that we found is a lot of these smaller businesses because they don't understand the technology, they don't understand the value of the technology, right? And so,
yeah,
we were getting kind of nickel and dimed over something we were grossly undercharging for to begin with, and then, out of the blue, I had a friend of mine that came to me and, we were working with, and so they were in the risk management space and they were competing with behemoths, right? And so they were trying to basically disrupt the industry. And, the initial build, it was a buddy of mine. I was trying to help him out, and he's like, their one estimate was a $500,000. I think we came in at like 15, and he's like, I gotta be honest with you. He's like, this is so important to me. I'd actually feel more comfortable if you actually increased your price. And again, this is a
Wow.
friend of mine, and so,
Yeah.
but in the grand scheme of things, he was right because if we hadn't increased our price, it was such a big project that we would have taken a bath on it. And so, and at the end of the day, they were thrilled. I mean, again, if the other option is a $500,000 and we did it for about 40K, they're thrilled with that, right? And we're thrilled with that.
Absolutely.
And I think that
Yeah.
just opened my eyes to, hey, maybe we want to go after a different market. And so we've started to kind of move in that direction. We've also tried to identify some potential niches. And so one area where there weren't a lot of no-code solutions was in healthcare, especially with related to HIPAA compliance. Um, and there are tech stacks now that are HIPAA compliant. And
Mm.
so healthcare is an area that we started to focus on, and we've actually started to make a lot of progress. And so we're working with about three or four healthcare clients now that are more sophisticated. Therefore, it's a bigger ticket item, and it's a win. It's a win for everyone. So those are
Yeah.
the things that we're starting to do, and we're starting to really see the benefits of that. But I will say these bigger projects, no surprise to you, I'm sure, is they just take longer to close. And so it took a while it was a little bit of a tough period where we were transitioning out of these small projects, going to these big projects, but then we had that sales cycle where we weren't closing them. And honestly, we made some good choices where we started turning away some of the projects that we knew were going to be not profitable for us, which was hard, which
Yeah.
it hurt me at times. But
Yeah.
but so really right now we're closing on projects that we really started talking to in like October, November of last year. But we're
Nice.
adding more to the pipeline now, and so yeah, we're really starting to see the benefits of kind of the hard work we put in over the last few months.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's good,
Yeah,
man. Yeah,
yeah.
keep it going. Yeah. So how do people contact you if they want to use you and learn more about your service?
Yeah, so the best way is you go to our website. So it's www.drivephase.co, which is DRIVEPHASE.co, not .com. Actually, there's a QR code actually in the corner of my screen there. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So
See
you,
that.
you, you, you visit that. If you go, there's about 1 million call to action buttons for a free consultation. That's really the best way to start. I mean, what we do in those initial consultations is just what I tell people is we want to understand what problem you're solving. Let's take the technology out of it for a second. Let's just understand the problem that you're trying to solve. And then, identify, hey, can this be built no code? Again, 9 times out of 10, the answer is yes. And then,
Yeah.
from there, if they're interested in moving forward, it's usually a whole nother session to really start scoping the project. And then what we typically recommend is, probably the best thing to do is we do kind of a UI UX design, which is like these wireframes, which is basically a graphical design of all the major screens. I don't know if you went through that in your app. Well, I'm sure you probably did, where we design all the major screens. What we find is, and I'm sure you went through it as well, is by going through that process, seeing the major screens, you realize what you want, what you don't want. And so we just find it's better to scope after we've gone through that process as opposed to without that. So yeah, that's kind of our general process.
Nice. I got kind of lucky. I drew out my app process on paper.
Okay.
I mean, it was highly detailed. And my developer said, "Who drew this out?" I said, "I did." He's like, "That's a really good job because it really explains what you want." And
Not
I was,
everyone gets that. So yeah,
yeah,
no, you've done that. It's always a plus. So
yeah,
kudos to you. And that's really
yeah.
a key because a lot of people come to us and they just don't know. They're like, well, this is what we wanted to do. Like, well, why is it like? Can you give me an estimate? And like, no, no, we can't. We
Right,
can't. So yeah, the more
right.
you can do that, the better. The better.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that was the thing because, going into this project, I knew exactly what I wanted because I did the research way ahead of time. I
Mm-hmm.
knew that nobody was doing it back in 2015. I
Mm-hmm.
researched everything, went through LegalZoom. I
Mm-hmm.
looked up everything. And I said, all right, this don't exist. I'm drawing it out. And I just spent the time to draw it out. And it was
Nice.
it was fun. I really enjoyed it. And I tell you, setting the app and seeing something online that I physically wanted designed and created and it's actually physically working was impressive. I tell you, I was so ecstatic that I saw my app in action, you know,
It
and it
is.
had
It's the level of
850 people
satisfaction
using
it
it.
brings. Yeah, it's like a
Yeah,
child, right? So like
yeah,
you're a little bit of a child that so
yeah.
you,
I can't wait
you
to send you links and show you what I did
yeah, I'm happy
because
to look at it. Yeah, I'm
it's
happy
a
to look at
really
it.
cool app. And once you see it, you'll get it, you know,
Yeah,
what Google did with it. You'll see once you look at the videos, you'll completely see why Google took it because it's such a great idea, you know,
yeah.
and nobody was doing it. And that's why Google stole it because, oh, this is definitely good, you know. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
no, I totally get what you mean, and yeah, it's a cool process, and like I said, it's like your child. So,
yeah, just like your baby. Yep,
yep.
definitely. All right. So in closing, what do you got for us? Final thoughts.
No, I think, like I said, the biggest thing is I want to educate, especially the small business owners, because,
Yeah,
um, you know, between AI and no code, AI especially is kind of divisive in some ways, and but I tell people all the time as kind of as hard as sometimes I feel like no code, I'm sorry, AI is, like I also know if we don't embrace it as small business owners, our
yeah,
competition will, right?
yeah,
And so
yeah,
I really think, to a lot of small business owners, understanding that the technology is just a lot more accessible to you and
yeah,
figuring out ways to leverage it in a way that makes sense. I'm not just saying build apps just to build apps, but look at your time consuming processes, look at areas where your customer experience could be improved,
right.
and those are the areas where an app or some sort of mobile app or web-based app can really make a difference. And again, it's not, no code makes it more affordable. It's not cheap, but at the end of the day, if you can execute your processes with less payroll, then it really can start to make a lot of sense very quickly. The return on investment can be massive, within a short period of time if you design the right thing.
Yeah, the payoff is so worth it, you know, because like you said, if you can no code it and you build it fast, you know, that gives you a faster time to your ROI, your return on investment be so much faster. You nailed it, you know.
Yeah, and then going back to what I said is, once you start getting people using it, your customers using it, being able to incorporate that feedback really quickly, it's just like it's a win, right? Because your customers like, oh wow, I just we asked for this, and it's already in the app, like 2 weeks later, like they're listening to us. So yeah,
Right.
that's what I'm most excited about. So that's really the biggest takeaway, Charles, that I want people to walk away with is especially those small business owners or even the mid-sized businesses, they are the ones that really can benefit from this
Yeah.
technology the most. Yeah.
There you have it. Yeah, and people who are listening and watching this, look, reach out to Sam. You got an app idea, reach out to him and work with him and see what he can come up with for you. Love it.
Well,
Sam,
appreciate that.
thanks again for coming on, man. I appreciate you taking the time interviewing with me. It's been a great learning process. And we'll talk soon. Enjoy the rest of the day. Have a great weekend.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. You too.
You got it, buddy. Thanks. Have a great
All
day.
right. Yep.
Take care.
You've been listening to the Q.A.C. Team podcast with your host, Charles Luttrell. Connect with us on the web at QACteam.com, TikTok at Q.A.C. Team, Facebook and Instagram at QAC.team. Thanks for your support.